Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool. Today I want to talk about utility knives, their costs, their benefits, and the differences between a lot of them. I'm going to basically consider only name brand utility knives. In this case, the Snap-on, Home Depot's Husky, Klein Tools, and Milwaukee. I'm going to compare them to other kinds of knives and talk about their prices, and also show you some tips and tricks and things that I've learned over the years with these guys. First of all, what makes a utility knife so cheap compared to, say, a quality pocket knife? So I've got a few comparisons here. These are some Benchmades that actually end up in the shop quite often, but they're not really designed for it. And why does something like this one, cost like $250 or $200 for something like that, or even a little over $100 for something like this, when you can get a Milwaukee that's very similar for somewhere, I don't know, around $15. So what's the difference? Why is this one costing $15 and this one might be $115? And in reality, the physics of the knife may be very similar. So what are you paying for? Well, in this case, you're paying for a designer's name. You're paying for a name brand company, Benchmade, made in America. A lot of American hands were involved in the creation of this knife over in Oregon. Very popular, well-engineered shape, the handle, the blade, the axis lock, totally better than anything I've seen in a utility knife. And you're paying for a better steel. This one is 154 cm. It's a crucible steel. It's kind of like the low end of the high quality kind of what are called super steels, which are just a particular stainless steel that has some very desirable characteristics. Whereas these are probably like a 420 or 440 stainless steel. Nothing exciting, real common steel. Proven though. They've been around for a long time. Tends not to rust or chip quite as easily as some of the cheaper stuff. It's not a high carbon steel, so the edge work takes a bit more finesse, but it doesn't stain and rust like the old high carbon ones. What else are you paying for? The engineering of it, it's a little bit better, a little nicer through the way it's assembled, the detail, the flex, the pieces, but they're so close. And I've used this Milwaukee for a lot of tasks that if I was blindfolded and couldn't quite feel some of the nuances of this, I may not know which knife I have. How does it compare to something like this? This Benchmade is a carbon fiber Nakamura design. It's got little highlights. Everything like that takes a little bit more effort. This one's essentially using the carbon fiber as the primary structural element. Just beautiful. This is S90V steel. That's like a really high-end super steel. What do you get with a super steel? It comes down to about 3 different things that define the steel, and that has to do with, beyond the hardness, that has to do with how well it holds an edge, has to do with how easy you can hone the edge back or put a new edge on it, and it also has to do with kind of the ultimate sharpness you can get that edge. The old carbon steel knives of the, say, pre-90s, you could really get those sharp. They weren't necessarily going to hold that edge for a long time compared to some of the super steels, but they definitely were going to be something you could put just a shaving sharp edge on. They weren't that expensive. They were going to stain. They could rust, but you just touched them up. You can live with them. That stuff's still great. Is something like this worth $250? Only if you wanted it. To have, it's kind of like jewelry. But is it worth it? Not for the shop, no. This uses D2 tool steel, super beefy, excellent, super strong. I find I grab this, quite often when I have some larger cutting chores. But the difference here, at a $200 knife, really nice, really beefy, excellent design, this Siebert design. However, this is essentially sacrificial. If I bust it off, if I chip the blade, if I'm prying and I shouldn't be, if I'm trying to cut through something and it turns out it's a lot harder, like maybe metal lined or something, I'm not going to be near as worried about messing this thing up. And in fact, I've messed up a few of these, and I've sent some photos to Milwaukee, and they send me new ones. So I'm thrilled with their customer service. A little wonky when I've got a release mechanism here to open it, and then a liner lock that I have to push. So this button does nothing once it's open. And sometimes I'll hand, kind of in my own tests, hand these knives to people and just ask them open it or close it and watch how long it takes to kind of figure the knife out. I think some of them now, they're probably going to have the push button open and close. The push button does allow you to essentially flick it open, but some of the others are a little confusing. And this one, I about can't figure out how to get that open very easily, but I'll get there. Anyway, so in Milwaukee, they have a couple of different designs. Let me go through that. So this is their Hawkbill. It uses the same release with the button and a liner lock. But a really stout blade. I really like that blade. I've mentioned that before, that I like Hawkbill blades. A lot of jimping up here. It's got a thumb ramp, but well, it's actually a depression more than a ramp. Here's the ramp. Nice finish. If you look at the spacing, it doesn't have gaps anywhere. No blade play. I can dig through it if I want. Take it apart with a Torx. And anyway, this is just a sweet little knife, not too expensive. So I don't know. My first Hawkbill, I did return it to Milwaukee because the blade chipped here, and then the mechanism just stopped being something you could easily operate with one hand. That's one of the things. Do I need to operate it with one or two hands? If I need something, I'm holding on to it, I should be able to flick it out and get to whatever I'm doing, assuming you live in a state that allows, this is essentially called a gravity knife, something like that. And they sent me a new one. They have another, this one's got an assist in the blade opening. It means you just start pushing the spine stud, and when it gets to a certain point, a spring kicks in and it pops open. This is kind of their tactical folding knife. I guess it uses a Tonto blade, and it's got a black coating that's nowhere near as good a coating as, say, on this Benchmade. In fact, this will come off pretty quick, and I've done that because I have a couple of these. However, if you want I guess a tactical shop knife, there you go. Couple things. I'm not a fan of the automatic in this case, and part of the reason is, sometimes I might be wanting the knife just to open a little bit for, whatever I'm doing. Maybe I'm cutting rope with it, putting the rope there and snipping it, or just the position I'm in. I might have it in a funny shape in my hand or something, and I don't want it to spring open and cut me. So a shop knife that's an assist, not for me. But, it has its place. Sometimes it's a lot faster if you need to get something quick. I guess that's the tactical side. This one lately is my favorite. And this is a kind of a standard. It's like a modified drop point blade. No serrations. Serrations can be very helpful if you're trying to cut through harder material, wet material, straps, rope, stuff like that. Some people don't like them because they're hard to sharpen, or maybe they think they're impossible, but you can really hone these up, on one side and get them nice and sharp. You can go in with a file too and try to work with the individual serrations, but in some ways they don't last quite as long. But anyway, this one, good design. It's a very fluid opening right there. There's no spring action anywhere, and the button does release it enough that the weight of the blade with a flick will open it, but it doesn't fall open. Some of these, you can see like on this guy here, it falls open and just wiggles around. That can be a little bit of a problem if you don't know what's coming. But anyway, like it. This works. I'm not a big fan of this wire design compared to sort of a traditional pocket clip, but close enough, and you can move it to a different spot if you want to tip up or tip down carry. Anyway, handy little thumb ramp jimping. I don't mind the shape of this. I think it's a good working shape. Sometimes when you have something that's got too many say finger grooves, it really only works in like one area of rotation or of orientation. You start using it in different ones and it doesn't really fit in the hand much anymore. That's where this has been so successful, is it just works in so many different positions. This one's pretty good, but it definitely has a preferred orientation. It's just so thick that you can grab it in a lot of different directions. So anyway, that's my thoughts here. If I was going to get one or recommend one, it'd be this particular Milwaukee right here. Klein makes a lot of utility knives. Obviously, they're really pushing more their electrical side. This is their latest. It's pretty thin. I assume that's aluminum. Nice design. They incorporate wire strippers in the spine of the blade. This type of a mechanism is known as a flipper, where you basically snap your finger down and the blade then flies out. Otherwise there's not any spring action. This particular one, it is incredibly hard to push. There we go. I don't know, I've tried playing around with it. The detent is just so strong. Once it's open, it's a nice little knife. Not a lot of substance to the handle. Also, something to think about is if you have a knife that has an enclosed handle that the blade fits in versus this one here, you can see that it's skeletonized or it's open all the way through. This is much easier to clean than if you get something wedged down in here and you're trying to scrape it out, dust, etc. But if you don't have the liner along the back, you have to build it out of a stronger material. That's one of the issues. Why something like that one's so thick. This one, they sealed it. It's a lot easier to do that. And then this guy here is huge, but it also has steel liners. You can see that kind of inside they're skeletonized or they've got holes drilled in them. But if you don't do that and you just have it open with a weak material, everything gets really flexible. This actually squishes in your hand. Anyway, I have high hopes for this one. I really like the fit and feel. The size is great. Again, a liner lock. Liner locks, there's nothing wrong with them. It's actually one of the strongest locking mechanisms if it's designed correctly. But the detent is just so strong that in launching this that even when I played with it a whole bunch of times, it just locks up. And I can't. I'm trying. Sometimes I have to pull. I can't open it. Anyway, I hope Klein figures that out. Something's up with it. But otherwise, I really like the shape. This is another one of theirs. This one, again, liner. A liner lock, lots of stainless steel in here, aluminum. These are called scales, the external plates of the handle. Very well designed, again, kind of skeletonized inside. I've grown to like this blade. This is more of a spear point, and you can see that it's lined up with the handle straight out to the tip, and that's more for thrusting, which is more of a weapon than cutting, especially for an electrical knife, which Klein is often in the electrical industry. However, I've had really good luck with it. this, I imagine, is a standard, like a 440 or 420 stainless blade. Looks like a hollow grind. It means it's kind of concave in the shape versus a convex grind or a straight grind. Very nice finish on the blade. Super sharp. That's probably a little on the too sharp of a point for a shop knife. It's gonna catch you or snap off or something. But I haven't had the problem yet. But it's definitely, for a shop knife, a lot more pointed. This is roughly the same blade without the stripping notches, and this one's in their Klein multi-tool, again, liner lock. This thing actually is pretty neat because they've got essentially like a lineman plier inside their multi-tool. Compare that to, the standard kind of needle nose. This is a Leatherman here. It's something else you have to wonder. This is a titanium handled Leatherman. These are like 150, 170 bucks, some ridiculous amount like that. And then this thing here was like 29. And it has a few other tools, but really beefy blades. This is nice and solid in your hand. A lot of them now, they're set up so you can deploy the blade easily and then use the entire piece as a handle. It's not inside. Some of them you can get out a little bit easier. This one's tough. And then over here, a couple of the most common things, screwdrivers. And that's it. They're multi-tool, really. But it's got the things that you're going to use probably 99% of the time. So something to consider here. Leatherman, on the other hand, one of the reasons they're so expensive, obviously they're made in Oregon. Again, seems like Oregon's a hotbed for stuff like this, with Kershaw, Gerber, Benchmade, Leatherman, all hanging around the kind of outside the Portland area. This uses S30V steel, which is again a super steel, really nice, very thin, and super steels really come to shine as the blades get thinner, and that has to do with their particular properties and the strength of the blade. But unfortunately, a lot of Leathermans will use like a 440 stainless with the same thin profile, and the stainless just is not strong enough. It's a little brittle when it gets so thin. But anyway, one of the things I don't like about standard Leathermans is this is a symmetrical design that does not fit well in your hand. It really needs to be kind of modified into something. This is kind of overkill with this huge side. I don't know anyone with their hands that big, but it'd be nice if they really spent some time working with the ergonomics and asymmetry of the human hand. But I mentioned that before. And then finally, we'll go down to the replaceable blade, kind of the razor knives. What's the difference? This one's like 25, 30 bucks. This one's like $5. And the blades can be identical. If you're working with any of these knives, there's a industry standard. I really like them. They're usually awfully thick for getting into smaller areas with this blade. But it's so easy to just throw a new blade on it. However, this is a pretty dull blade right here. In fact, I can make it a little bit duller, rubbing it on this sanding block. Kind of scary, huh? Rubbing it on my finger. Freaky. And if I grab a piece of newspaper, it's pretty bad. But watch this. I can take a sharpening tool like this, or with these things I kind of prefer this shape, and I'm just going to quickly hone it right back up. Test this out. A little bit more on this side. I'm going to cut myself while I'm doing that. There we go. Let's try it now. Let's see here. So I get it started. It cuts through. So, saved a few bucks. I mean, literally just a couple bucks by getting a little bit more life out of these blades. So you can feel the blade, and if it's got some life in it, it'll come right back with a quick sharpening. If it doesn't, then you toss it. It's that simple. But a lot of times these get dull pretty fast. It's not high quality steel. And then what do? You know, throw it out, get another one. Well, if it's in good shape and I'm not running it over a, you know, an oxide sanding block, I can just tune it right up and it's ready to go. If I need a little bit more, I could go to a diamond stone like this Benchmade stone here. I think it's Work Sharp actually is the one who makes these, but it's branded Benchmade, and make a big difference. And don't forget to strop it, you know, and I'm taking off a little bit more steel by using a diamond stone. And I can get these right back to a nice cutting blade for most things once I get it started. Anyway, so that's a little tip there for getting more life out of these. I like the low profile one, even though there's a Husky, it works really well. But the snap-on with an auto-loading feature, it means I can load this up with blades, and then I can pull that out, cycle this back, show you here. So here's the blade, I can push the button, take that out, cycle this back, and a new blade is right there. So really handy to keep you working if you've got a bunch of stuff going on. And then I'd have to, you know, take these out, whatever is in here, cycle this out till it's empty, you know, and put my other original blade in, followed by these, and then I can reload it back to the original. There you go. Pop in this. I've had this for a number of years, and I actually do like it. Two of the things that I really concern myself with when looking at a utility knife, and why these two have ended up. One, I wanted a nice solid deployment. Stanley notoriously has had this kind of wishy-washy system that you often are using the knife and all of a sudden you kick the blade out or retract it. And the other thing is how to get the blade out. I've worked with several that right up here there's just a release mechanism. In fact, there's some really lousy Huskies out there, especially the folding ones. I don't even have those around anymore. I thought they were a little too dangerous. But how easily can you release the blade? In this case, I have to push this in, this lever here, and then I can retract this cover, and then I can get at the blade. That actually is impossible to do with traditional use. It's very hard. One is this goes down, and you know it's already in the way versus the ones that fold out or pop up or slide out. And the other is the button is not on the top, it's on the side, and that makes a huge difference. I'm not in a speed race to swap out blades. I don't want it to come out or to retract or to extend further than I want when I'm using it. So something to think about there when you're deciding on one of those. Last thing I'll point out is this isn't just something you worry about with knives, you know, shop knives. You know, we kind of see the same across a lot of different areas. You know, I've got two hatchets here. These are quality hatchets. This is that standard Estwing. You know, everyone's probably grown up with one of these or seen one with the rubber washer handles. Solid steel all the way through. Almost identical in form factor, you know, is this Grand Force Bruck. This one, about $45. This one, about $170. So what's the difference? Well, you know, you've got, this is hand forged. This is a beautifully finished, you excellent grain handle. The designs, I mean, this one's made in America. This one's made in Sweden. Both have warranties somewhat. This Estwing is going to be a whole lot easier to get serviced if something happens, and I have used Estwing service, and it's great. But you see whenever you're working with cutlery, you can have really similar things, but the difference is in the details and in the appreciation. I really enjoy using these Benchmade knives. I love the axis lock. This is to get a job done. This is to enjoy using it. So I think that's really the difference. So this one might be with me all the time, but if I've got a hard work or hard job to do, I might grab one of these, even though that's sitting in my pocket, just because I don't want to bust this. I want to be able to enjoy using this a lot longer. This one, I don't care as much. Anyway, that's just some of my thoughts on these utility knives. Enjoy. Dock out.